You know, when you have a question about your child's health, it's so easy to reach for your phone. But what happens when the answers you find online, well, what if they're just plain wrong? Today, we're asking a really important question. Can we actually trust a huge platform like YouTube for reliable, safe information about ADHD?
I mean, really think about it for a second. You see some things that make you wonder, you've got questions, and that feeling of what do I do starts to creep in. For so many of us, parents and even pediatricians, that very first step is hopping online for a quick search. It's totally understandable.
And where do most of those searches lead? Yep, to YouTube. We're talking about a platform that almost 2 billion people use every single month. It has become this giant go-to resource for, well, for everything, right? From home repairs to, you guessed it, complex medical conditions.
And that gets us right to the heart of the issue. You know, with millions of kids affected by ADHD, the quality of the information that families and doctors find online is it's crucial. So, when it comes to ADHD, is YouTube a helpful guide, or is it a place filled with some seriously dangerous misinformation?
Okay, so let's really dig in. To get a real answer to that question, we can't just guess. We need to look at the actual data. And that is exactly what one team of researchers did. They launched a major investigation into the ADHD content floating around on YouTube.
And this really important study was led by someone who sees the real-world impact of bad information every single day, Dr. Jeffrey Kornitzer. He's the co-director of the New Jersey Pediatric Neuroscience Institute. You'll see it called NJPNI. He knows better than anyone that top-tier medical care has to start with top-tier, reliable information. And that's exactly what drove him to find out what's really going on.
And let's be clear, the stakes here are incredibly high. ADHD is a chronic condition. We're talking about persistent challenges with things like inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. It's a complex issue, and for families trying to navigate it, getting clear, expert guidance isn't just nice to have, it's absolutely essential.
So, how did Dr. Kornitzer and his team do this? Well, they were really methodical. First, they just searched YouTube like any parent would, using terms like ADHD or names of common medications. Then they took the top 120 videos and figured out who was making them. And finally, and this is the key part, they used a real scientific tool called Discern to rate every single video for its quality and bias. And what they found, well, honestly, it's pretty alarming. The results give us a very stark picture of the kind of information that millions and millions of people are seeing every day. Just get a load of this number. The 120 videos they looked at had been viewed altogether more than 179 million times. That is a gigantic audience soaking up this information, for better, and as we're about to see, often for worse.
So who's behind all these popular videos? This is where it gets crazy. The study found that a whopping 85% of the most viewed videos came from non-medical creators. That leaves just a tiny little sliver, only 15%, that were actually made by medical experts like doctors or nurses.
Okay, so what about the quality? Remember that 5-point scale they used, where 1 is really low quality and 5 is high quality? Well, the average score for all 120 videos was a pretty dismal 2.03. That is way, way, way below what you'd consider a good, trustworthy educational resource.
And this is the part that should really make you pause. The study found that the more popular a video was, the worse its quality was likely to be. In fact, the top 10 most viewed videos, the ones YouTube's algorithm is pushing on everyone, had an average score of just 1.2 out of 5. The most popular stuff was the least reliable.
So what kind of bad information are we talking about here? We're talking about videos with millions of views that were pushing really dangerous myths. Things like ADHD isn't even a real condition, or that Big Pharma just invented it, or that proven helpful medications are just drugs of abuse that will lead to addiction. This is the kind of stuff that can cause real harm.
Okay, so where does that leave us? Knowing all these risks, how can parents and pediatricians find information that they can actually trust? The good news is, the study gives us a pretty clear roadmap.
It basically gives us a little checklist. The unreliable stuff, it's often biased, it's made more for entertainment, and the creators are not medical professionals. What you want to look for is the opposite, content that is unbiased and educational, made by board-certified physicians who actually cite their scientific sources. That's the gold standard. So here are the big takeaways for parents and for pediatricians. First, you have to be critical, especially of those super popular videos. Second, always check what you hear against trusted sources. Dr. Kornitzer's study specifically points to sites like cdc.gov and chad.org, that's chadd.org. And probably most important, seek out content that's actually created by real medical professionals.
You know, the study's own conclusion really says it all. It says that anyone, patients and physicians using YouTube for health information, has to understand the bias and has to use accepted, reliable resources to fact-check what they're seeing.
But let's be honest, at the end of the day, no YouTube video or website can ever take the place of the best resource there is, a real, face-to-face conversation with a medical expert who actually understands your child and their specific needs.
And that brings everything full circle, doesn't it? It brings us right back to the source of this incredible research. Because for Dr. Kornitzer and his entire team at the New Jersey Pediatric Neuroscience Institute, this commitment to cutting through the online noise, it's not just a study, it's their entire mission.
So why turn to NJPNI? Well, it's because you're getting guidance from the very experts who are setting the standard for what reliable information looks like. You're getting comprehensive, expert care, and you're getting a real partner in your child's health, someone who will give you the trusted answers that the internet so often fails to deliver.
If you are looking for clear, compassionate, and truly expert-driven care for your child, please contact the New Jersey Pediatric Neuroscience Institute. The number to call is 973-326-9000, and you can find them on the web at njpni.com.
So, we'll just leave you with this final question to think about. In a world that is just flooded with information, where the loudest voices are very often the least qualified, who are you going to trust for the answers that really truly matter? Your child's health is way too important to leave up to a social media algorithm. It deserves expertise, it deserves evidence, and it deserves a true partner in care.